okay with that? It won't be much.
Okay, it's hard to upset Canadians, but the president has the Prime Minister of Canada not mincing words about this trade war.
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
He is referring to this headline from the Wall Street Journal's editorial board. All right, you guys, we are back about this. Yesterday, we were talking a lot about the severe stock market declines. Markets aren't, you know, like gospel, but they are, in a way, temperature reading, a pulse check. Chuck, what do you see in the focus on this topic?
There's a whole lot of people that voted for Donald Trump who don't like Donald Trump. Let me make my point, and this is to this point exactly, is when we were in focus groups and in Senate races and House races around the country, there were a whole lot of what I would call common sense, economic-driven Republicans who were going to vote for Donald Trump because they did not like Joe Biden. They thought he was old and fleckless, but they wanted somebody in there who at least make sure they made money, that the corporations had some fair dealings, that regulations was lower, and that we just kept moving things along. Working class people wanted it because they wanted their prices to be lower. These kind of things make prices higher, make the stock market go down, and it makes those Republicans who voted for him very mad.
The best outcome for Donald Trump on this is if he doesn't actually have to follow through with tariffs for any long amount of time,
yeah,
that he can get some kind of win on,
we're
going to shut down fentanyl, et cetera. That's going to be the biggest win for him because it'll show, oh, I'm strong. I was able to use this as a negotiating tactic without having to grapple with the potential
Let me show
fallout.
you some Pennsylvania voters who watched Trump's address and what they had to say specifically on this issue of tariffs.
I don't think that he understands how tariffs might be inflationary, and I think that he did not spend nearly enough time talking about what we're experiencing right now.
We are the breadbasket of the world. They want our products, okay? So they're gonna hold us hostage on our agricultural products, but they're gonna come back and they're gonna buy it. We're gonna take a dip in our products, but it's gonna come back.
Sabrina, I feel like this sums it up. It's a gamble. People either feel like this seems bad, don't do it, or don't worry about it. It's just a way of X. Is there like a plan B? Like, does the administration be like, okay, well, if it actually goes for a long time, here's what we're going to do?
I mean, frankly, I'm surprised that Donald Trump went through with it without having more negotiations with Mexico and Canada, without potentially pausing it again. I covered trade throughout the first term of the Trump administration, and he often threw around trade threats when he was frustrated on different issues. So it's not new that Donald Trump would use tariffs as an opportunity.
On that idea? I mean, basically, you were reporting when those tariffs went through the first time. Were they temporary pain? Did voters say, well, it wasn't so bad?
He didn't end up putting in blanket tariffs in the first term. You know, it was more targeted. It was, okay, steel and aluminum tariffs, which people did feel pain from, or it was specific ones to specific goods from China. I mean, it was a much more targeted.
I think I remember,
but this is something that Trump has been itching to do since his first term, and here we see him now following through on it. I think one of the things that this really raises for me is sort of the question of Donald Trump, the deal maker. He spent a good chunk of his first term negotiating the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, the replacement for what he called the nightmare NAFTA. At the time, he called it the fairest, most beneficial trade agreement that the United States had ever signed. He talked about how he was going to level the playing field, and here we are, and I think it raises questions. He's talking again about trade deficits with Mexico and Canada, so the deal he spent all those years negotiating didn't pan out.
All right, I want you guys to stay with me because there's obviously more reaction to